Experimenting with different lighting is great fun. It's amazing what a range of results you can get drawing the same object but with different light. When you're at home, choose some simple objects like a stuffed toy, a hard surface toy, a log from the garden, a candlestick or an ornament, whatever takes your fancy, and try drawing them in as many different lighting situations as possible. This drawing here shows the same face again, lit from the side and from underneath. You can see how different the two looks are. Different materials have different textures, and there are ways that you can show these distinct characteristics. Glass is really satisfying to draw when you capture its unique nature. It has white highlights reflecting both the light and other objects around the room. There are darker and lighter lines following the vertical direction of the glass, and as it's a smooth surface, cross-hatching and smooth shading are good. You can see where I've started that on this drawing. You may also want to use your eraser to bring out some of the highlights more if necessary. Metal is another smooth surface, so we'll also use smooth shading. Metal has streaks of really strong highlights and contrasts. Start with an HB, then bring out the darks with a 3B pencil. There will be some flecks of white which you can help bring out with the kneadable eraser. Fur can be imitated using short flicks and sketchy scribbles with your pencil, and if you do this in sections of dark and light, it will add to the realism. I'm using a 3B pencil to block in most of the fur and the kneadable eraser to pull out light patches. I'm mixing it up with an HB as well when I need a lighter touch. The pencil I choose to use is a bit of a feel thing. Often I don't know until I'm doing it. I'll start with what I think will work, but change around if it's too light or dark. For rocks, use your pencil in a slightly scribbly way to imitate the rough texture. It's a different sort of scribbly to the fur though. It's more a dotty scribbly. There are strong contrasts between the different planes, although the actual flat surfaces are fairly uniform in shade. Block in the dark planes, probably with a 4B, and then the lighter planes with an HB. Mix it around if you need to though, and then put the scribbly lumps and bumps over the top, and voila, it's some rocks. With silk, the folds in it are round and the shiny nature of the material creates a highlight at the top of each curve. This will require smooth shading. You can see here how I've used cross-hatching to create an almost flawless surface. Creating a convincing texture requires you to look for the shadows and the highlights. Many things are shiny, but where the highlights fall is what distinguishes them. Also, try and imitate the smooth or rough surface with your pencil. Have fun exploring different objects and analysing their surfaces. We've essentially been drawing still life with the single inanimate objects we've already done, but most still life compositions have more than one object, arranged in a way that is either meaningful or just looks good. You can choose things that interest you because they look quirky or fun to draw, or you might choose things that when placed together take on a symbolic meaning. Find objects around the house that you like, or visit an opportunity shop or garage sale and see if they have any old things that would suit. Objects with lots of different textures often look good and provide variety within your drawing. When setting up your still life, overlap the objects to give some depth to the whole thing. I've overlapped lots of objects here and taken things from my home that I think are interesting and a little quirky. Most of them are pretty old-fashioned in their look. This isn't always the case, however. You might wish to create a minimalistic, sparse feel, and in that case you'd probably choose objects that all look a little streamlined and arrange them far apart with lots of space. It's good to experiment with the positioning of objects until you're happy with the composition. Trial different lighting on your setup. As you have already discovered, various types of lighting will alter the whole mood of your drawing. Play around with the light till you have exactly the right effect you're after. It may be natural light through a window or more extreme light from an artificial source. Once you're fairly happy with your composition, you can use the framing device to help decide how to frame your work. You may decide to have the drawing going off the page, or it may be all contained within the page. Unless you're specifically trying to achieve a minimalistic effect, don't do a tiny drawing in the middle of your page with lots of space around it. Use your paper to its full capacity. To check how it's all working, draw up some quick thumbnails. This is the time to work out any faults in the composition or framing. Thumbnails should be really quick though. Don't spend more than 5 minutes on each one. In fact, 30 seconds is a better time frame. They're problem solvers, not finished works of art. Now it's time to start drawing. Lightly sketch in your composition using an HB pencil. Use your measurement skills to make sure the proportions are accurate and everything aligns at the right spot. You can use a grid, the side C method of measuring, or simply use your eye to cross-reference everything. Whatever you feel comfortable with at this stage. Sometimes it's good to use a sketchy style at first to help find the lines. When a line is sketchy with lots of loose lines around it to choose from, your eye can automatically pick the right one. And that helps get it looking right. Check the basic shapes are blocked in and check that the proportions look pretty good, and then start to outline all the details. The objects should be starting to look like what they are. Start lightly adding tone, looking for the dark sections and highlights. Everything has lighter and darker bits. I'm using a 3B to block the basic shapes in quickly and give a rough idea of form. I'll fine-tune it all later. Look for the shadows and see where they lie. Also look for the cast shadows, which occur when one object casts a shadow over another object. They give a sense of depth while adding to the illusion that the objects are overlapping. Develop the tone in your drawing even more with darker pencils in the dark parts and the shadows. Use lighter pencils like a 2H or a 3H to smooth the transition to the lighter bits. You may even want to use the paper stumps to help smooth out the shading. Make sure you have plenty of contrast between the lights and darks. Sometimes it's good to exaggerate this to add to the drama of your work. Constantly stand back from your work to see how it's looking. If you want to pull out the highlights more, use the kneadable eraser. Simply continue adding or pulling back tone and texture until you're completely satisfied with the end result. The human form can be one of the most interesting subjects to draw. It helps when drawing figures to have some idea of the structure of the body. In Leonardo's day, they used to dissect the human body to analyse how it worked. We don't need to do that, but it does help to have some knowledge of proportions. If you look at this diagram, you can see how the body can be divided into sections. It's generally accepted that the length of the head will fit 7.5 times into the body. The classical proportions were 8 heads into the body, but many of the figures drawn in that time were godlike figures. And although this is still used today for fashion drawings and magazines, the more realistic proportions are 7.5 heads into the body. The midpoint of the body is at the pubic bone, not at the waist, as many people initially think, and the female form is more rounded with narrower shoulders and wider hips than the male. Children have slightly different proportions to adults. Toddlers are about 4 heads tall, and children around the age of 6 to 7 are 6 heads tall. By age 10, they are about 7 heads tall. When the head is viewed straight on, the width of the head is about 2/3 of the height. The eyes are halfway between the top of the head and the chin. The bottom of the nose is halfway between the top of the eyes and the chin. The bottom of the mouth is halfway between the nose and the chin. The corners of the mouth align with the centres of the eyes. The tops of the ears align with the eyebrows. The bottom of the ears align with the bottom of the nose. The nose is approximately the same width as the eyes, and the eyes are 1 eye width apart. You can see all these proportions fit on my face as well. My eyes are halfway down my head, for example, not further up as many people sometimes think. When the face is in profile, the head divides in half at the jawline, just in front of the ears, with the nose sticking out further in front. How much it sticks out depends on how big the person's nose is. The back of the head is deceptively larger than many people think. Children and babies have a proportionally larger forehead than adults. With a baby, you'll find the middle of the eyes is about 3/7 of the way up the head. The lower lip is on the first seventh and the nose is on the next. These are, of course, generalisations, and with all these proportions, it's important to double check what you're doing from your model and reference and see if it really is what you're seeing, especially once you start drawing heads from all sorts of angles. That's when the fun starts, with foreshortening and proportions being altered. Your eye will then most certainly be the best tool you have. If you look at the features of someone's face front on, you'll notice that the lips have 2 peaks and a dint on the upper lip under the nose. The line where the lips meet will mostly be a darker line than the outside of the lips. Only part of the ears can be seen, and although it may seem silly, don't forget to draw the eyelids if they're visible. Many beginner drawers forget that we have eyelids and compensate with really big eyelashes. The features on the face in profile are quite different to front on. The eyes in profile are a completely different shape and look roughly similar to a triangle. The mouth is half the length, so make sure you don't draw it too long, and the eyes don't go above the nose in profile, which is quite a common mistake. People often think eyes should be high up in the forehead area, which is actually incorrect. If you're drawing someone's face in 3/4 view, the eye furthest away will be a different shape and will appear much shorter. The half of the mouth furthest away will also be smaller, as will part of the nose. Drawing different expressions can be one of the most satisfying drawing experiences. Everyone can connect with human emotions, so you're immediately creating something your viewing audience will relate to. With a happy expression, the mouth is up, often showing the teeth, which raises the cheeks and crinkles the eyes. Eyebrows tend to stay neutral. With an angry face, the eyebrows are drawn together, causing frown lines, and the eyes are narrowed. The mouth turns down and lines travel downwards from the corner of the mouth. The eyebrows on a sad face curve up towards the middle. Eyes are at normal width, they're not narrowed or anything, and the mouth is turned down. A surprised face has wide staring eyes with raised eyebrows. The mouth will be wide open. This face here has the mouth open but is surprised in a happy way, so it's open in an upturned, smiley manner. The face here, however, is surprised in a worried way and the mouth is more neutral. Haughty faces have arched eyebrows and the mouth and chin are pulled down with the lips slightly pursed. You can choose from a huge range of expressions that people display. Do an internet search for different expressions and see what common characteristics you can find, or ask your friends and family to pull faces for you. They may think you're mad, but that's okay. A lot of people avoid hands and feet thinking that they're harder than everything else. Well, they're actually not. You just need to break them down into simple elements and practice drawing them. It's like anything, the more you practice, the better you get. The middle fingers on our hands are only slightly shorter than the length of our palm. Our whole hand is about as long as the length from our chin to the middle of our forehead. People often make the mistake of drawing our hands too small. The best way to get used to drawing hands is to practice in as many different positions as possible. Always marking the knuckles as they give the bends and contours. Look at your own hand in various positions and practice drawing it. The feet are approximately the size of our head. The ankle bone is larger on the outside of the foot than the inside, and these bones are important in making the foot look real. The large toe goes into the rest of the foot about 4 times, and of course the other toes get smaller. It's time now to start drawing the whole figure. Ask people to model for you or see if you can get to a life drawing class. Drawing the naked form is one of the best ways to tune your eye, although your friends will probably want to keep their clothes on. Otherwise, use photos as reference to start. With this figure, I'm drawing the woman standing. Like the still life I drew before, I lightly sketch in the proportions of my model using my measuring skills. Knowing the basic rules of proportion is also helpful to double check that my measurements make sense. For example, I can easily check that the woman's head fits 7.5 times into the body with this pose. I then lightly shade in the figure with a 2B pencil, Once I'm happy that my main areas of shading are correct, I continue to smooth it all out to get a more polished end result and also to emphasise the darks and the lights. I use a lighter lead to smooth out the lighter bits and also to refine any rough textures if I don't want them. If I want to bring out the darker bits more, I can go over it again with a 3B or a 4B. The same basic steps apply to this figure of a crouching man that I'm doing. Check that your figure looks balanced as you block in the basic shape. Male figures can have lots of muscle tone, so look for all the subtle variations that you can shade. Sometimes your knowledge of proportions will have to be modified due to foreshortening. This is where your eye and ability to measure will be important. As we discovered with the last figure drawing, often the rules of proportion won't apply due to foreshortening, and the parts of the body closest to us will appear larger than the parts further away. If you look at my arm as I hold it straight out, you'll notice that it looks much shorter than it really is. In this illustration, the feet are much larger than they would appear if the person was standing up. The leg is shortened as well because we're looking straight at it. This is where your measuring skills are really useful, so you can see how long the leg really is in comparison to the foot and the body. The foot here is actually longer than the leg. Shading can help foreshortening make sense as well. It adds to the depth and distance of the work. The lighter parts on the knee show us that the knee is bent and adds to the illusion of length. A good way to practice the human form in different poses and also to get good at capturing movement is gesture drawings. They are super quick drawings with the aim being to catch the moment of the pose. They're great for training the eye to draw action and become familiar with the body in all its angles. Start with a stick figure and capture the basic pose and movement, and then begin to flesh it out. Use quick sketchy lines to help find where the line should lie. This can also create the illusion of movement. Each drawing should take no longer than 1 minute. They're meant to be really, really quick. Try drawing on location with your visual diary and capturing the people passing by. Sporting events can be great, or even just sitting at a cafe. Drawing while enjoying coffee and cake is a fabulous way to spend the afternoon. Drawing animals uses exactly the same skills and principles as we've used for all the other subjects. Measurement skills are particularly important, as the viewer will know if the proportions are wrong more than they would with a vase that could be any shape. Becoming familiar with the anatomy of various animals can be helpful, but the best thing is observation. Try drawing the family pet, or visit your friends and draw their pet as a present for them. This is a drawing of my friend's kitten. I did some very quick gesture drawings of the kitten and then took some photos as well. Kittens don't sit still for very long, so this seemed the best approach. Notice how I've created the fur with wispy lines. When you're at home, using reference from books or photos you may have can be great practice. This gives you time to focus on details and textures you mightn't get drawing from life. But if you are going to draw from life, then going to the zoo is a great place to start drawing animals, as well as a terrific day out. Take your visual diary to sketch in and your camera so you can have backup reference when you go home. Try some of the animals that are fairly stationary first. Elephants don't jump around a lot, so they're a good starting point. They also have a fairly easy form to block in. Following the same format as our other drawings, start by loosely sketching in the shape, making sure the proportions are right. Add tone using a 6B for the darker parts. Put the main areas of tone in quickly at first to give you an idea if you're on the right track. When you stand back from it, it should be starting to take form. Put a shadow under the elephant so it looks like it's really standing somewhere. And fine-tune the shading with either a lighter pencil or a paper stump. Now start adding the detail of the skin and other features. There are lots of crinkles and wrinkles that make up the form of an elephant and give it its unique character. You'll need a sharp pencil for this, and that's where the sandpaper pad is handy. Keep standing back from your work to check that it's all looking right, and always ask yourself, is there anything else I can add to this drawing to make it look better? Lions can be quite sleepy, and you will often find they will stay still for lengths of time while you draw. When I went to the zoo, however, this lion decided not to sleep, but to prowl around. Half the fun of drawing on location is that you never really know what to expect. Once again, it's the same process. Block in the basic shape, but do it as quickly as you can if the subject is mobile. In this case, you may find it easier to take photos and just do lots of quick movement sketches while you're at the zoo. Start adding in the tone. The mane will have looser, more fluid lines than the fur on the body. Next, fine-tune the shading, smoothing out any rough spots, and then put in all the finer details. When you stand back from your work, you may find that some bits need to be even darker, and you may need to pull out some highlights with the kneadable eraser. There's a whole world out there waiting for you to draw it. Sometimes you will see fantastic landscapes if you are travelling, but sometimes amazing landscapes can be just outside your front door if you look around. It can be the beach, a lovely park, or even the haphazard towers of the city. Drawing landscapes is great for improving your composition skills. One particular scene can often be broken down into a number of different possibilities, and you have the exciting task of deciding which one you'd like to draw. If you look at this photo, you'll see that I've placed boxes over it showing the other possible compositions within it. You could focus only on one small part and zoom in closer if you wanted. There are many valid compositions, and it's fun playing around with which one you want to develop. When you're out on location, your framing device is great for working out which part of the landscape you want to focus on. Drawing up quick thumbnails is helpful in finalising your decision as to what works.